Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Man Podcast. My name's Rory Paquette, and I know you know that, but I just like to remind myself how grateful I am to be sitting in this chair and sitting across powerful gentlemen like the guy I'm talking to today. Folks, when we went to 7 days a week on content, you just absolutely stepped up, and frankly, you saved my life because all the people around me were telling me I was nuts, except my wife, and you folks came through. With your liking, subscribing, everything else you've done, your DMs, you've just catapulted us forward and enabled us to do even more of what we love to do. So if you're not out there doing what you're doing, I can't sit here and do what I'm doing. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Now, if you are a friend of the program, and I know you are, got a different coffee cup today. Yes, I know I'm going to hear about it. Where's the red IU cup? Well, you got to wash the dishes at some point. Okay. So here it is, different coffee cup. And you know what we're drinking? That's right. It's Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful. Just like my wife. They brew a mean cup of Joe. It's absolutely fantastic. And they do all the right things for all the right reasons, including supporting veterans, which is one of the reasons that we support them. Folks, you all know how important veterans are to us here at the Power Man Podcast. If you're a veteran out there, I want to thank you and your family for your sacrifice and for everything that you do for us and for our country. We love you. We're happy that you found a home here with the Power Man Podcast and with Freedom Hill Coffee. At Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram, look them up, check them out, tell them Power of Man sent you. Now, let me get another sip of this before we go. Mm, man, that's fantastic stuff. Get yourself a bag. Folks, I'm going to need a little bit of that. Keep me going today so I can keep up with this young buck across the table from me. Please welcome to the show the author of Man Up, Sober Up, the founder of MyRockBottomRecovery.com. He's also a podcast host, so he's one of us, man. He's the host of the Next Fix podcast, 70 plus episodes. The guy's out there rocking and rolling. He's a father, he's a husband, and incredibly important to all of this, he's 6 years sober. And I got to tell you, I'm just incredibly proud of this guy, and I just met him. Please welcome to the podcast, Ryan Penley. Ryan, how you doing, brother?
Oh man, glorious, Rory. We're doing glorious over here, man. And so I do appreciate the opportunity to share my journey and all the developments in my life that I'm so very proud of.
Love it, love it. I'm really I'm thankful that you're here. Sharing your story with my listeners. They need to hear stories of men overcoming their demons and things like this. Brother, this is your story, and it's a fascinating one from the get. So where do you want to start? You go right ahead. Who is Ryan? Who is Ryan Penley? What are you about, and what brings you here?
Yeah, well, I like to not lean on it or use it as an excuse, but my story did begin with my parents. They're both addicts. They're both alcoholics, and by the grace of God, I was raised by my grandparents. But, you know, my grandpa, he was your classic alcoholic, two martinis at lunch, but he got the job done. And he didn't, rant and rave or cause a scene, but he drank all the time. And it was like that quiet alcoholic. Well, if, he's not a mess, then it's okay. And so I was very much in an environment where alcohol was normal, and so being raised in that environment, it wasn't promoted that I drink. However, there was definitely no red flags or cautionary tales of like, "Hey, you shouldn't do this." And so it was. It made sense that it developed in my life, and so I took it to the next level because I am an addict, and I do believe the tenacity that addicts bring to all of their endeavors, whether it be substance abuse or business or podcast or whatever it is. It's that character trait that you don't. Moderation is not on the table. Okay. And
Right.
so I went all in. I started drinking, and I all of a sudden I felt this courage, or at least what I thought it was, this loss of inhibitions and the ability to talk to girls and be funny, or at least I thought I was funny. And so where did I find myself? I found myself in Las Vegas. I went to the epicenter. I started bartending on the Las Vegas Strip, and so I really brought that lifestyle, to the pinnacle. Right, I went to the mountaintop, and so I was making money, and I was doing rather well, and I would be what you call successful from many objective standpoints. There's a lot of boxes being checked off. However, over time, it started to creep up and I started to lose control. And I say something about Las Vegas all the time is that if you're there for a few hours, a week, a year, 10 years, you leave broke. And so
Yeah.
like I was there for 11 years. And so I did okay from some people's standpoint. Now, I would say from like the general population of America and looking from the outside in, I was clearly out of control. I had issues with substances, but I hadn't truly lost control until I broke my leg. And then this was like 2008, and then boom, a doctor had prescribed me enough narcotics to kill a rhinoceros, and so I was instantly an addict, and it was the nature of the system at the time. And again, I don't shed responsibility. I was still the one putting it into my body at the end of the day. However, I did have this green light, and I had a bunch of drugs, and it was not drugs; it was medicine, and so that is a very slippery slope, one that a lot of people don't really come back from. And so, my, you know, the depths, I suppose, of my addiction and my substance abuse, just really went pretty deep. And then so I opened up my book with me coming out of a coma, and I had developed diabetes, as a result of damaging my pancreas and this and that. And so I wake up in a coma, out of a coma in Colorado. I'd been airlifted to another town. And ironically, I was like sober right before the coma hit. And the body will do weird things. Like my body had grown accustomed to the alcohol and the drugs, and so without it, my body kind of shut down. And so it was wild to wake up, and it was a real blessing that I had people around me that cared. There's still some people that cared, and at this point in the story, people would always say, "Oh, well, that's where you turned it all around," but that's not the truth because I wasn't suffering. The people around me were suffering. Me, I woke up from a nap. I mean, granted, my body was pretty bad. I was pretty bad off. I was about 160 pounds, and I still hadn't gone through much suffering. And so God had a that was basically, it's like the start, I guess, right? From a lot of standpoints of where I really started attempting to get my feet on the ground. And so then I failed. I don't know how many times I did, but it was countless times that I had. I love the biblical phrase, fall down seven times, get up eight, and it's not about seven and eight specifically, but it's however many times you fall down, it just takes the last time to get up. And so that went on for years. I managed to get back to Florida where I got around my family, and people said, "Oh, well, that's when you turned it around." No, because I still brought myself along for the journey, and I myself was not healed, not by a long shot. And so, when I got back to Florida, the drugs were gone because I couldn't afford them. So now I was just, liquor store bottles of vodka that, $6 bottles. I mean, we're talking gut wrenching, not like that coffee that you're talking about. That's so very well developed and so thoughtful, right? Like we're talking about here's alcohol. It is barely not rubbing alcohol. Here you go, destroy your body. And so
Right.
I just continued to just limp along for years. And I was in and out of men's programs. And now along that period of life, I never got mad at God, which I still hold as like a feather in my cap. I didn't get like pissed off. I wasn't like, how dare you do this to me? I realized that I was in a fight with the devil, a full on fist fight to the end. I was in the 15th round losing, and nobody thought I was going to win, including me. Right? And so that's what it took was for me to kind of just relinquish control, which a lot of people that do get some progress or some success in recovery, they will tell you, that you have to, that relinquishing the control and understanding that you're not the center of the universe. There is something greater than yourself. It's a massive part for most people's recovery journeys. And so I was one of those people that needed to be taught that lesson. And so it was it was a hard lesson to learn, and I'm rather stubborn, but it ended up sticking. And then so now I'm committed to helping people a few rungs down the ladder from where I'm at. And so yeah, that's I suppose in a nutshell. But there's some gruesome stories that are in my book that I guess would be the details. But yeah, I mean that's the last 6 years there.
Wow, brother. I mean, I hear this often when I talk to folks who have kind of overcome what you've overcome, in that they tried and tried and tried on their own, to kind of get out of it. The um, and I appreciate the story. There's always a turning point somewhere, for folks who have to deal with this stuff. You have you founded a thing called myrockbottomrecovery.com. So tell me about that. And is that how you systematically got yourself out of this, in terms of how you're helping other people? What's the connection there?
I wouldn't say it's comprehensive,
Okay.
meaning it is a handful of tools, video led by myself, of a launch pad. Because something important to note about recovery is that every person has their own path and where they are at on that path. Okay. And so for a person who's, I mean, in the trenches, meaning like they're just hanging on by a thread, that is a very special kind of person that needs a very special kind of help. Now, what my handful of tools and what I offer there is somebody who, they're not on they're not hanging on by a thread. Maybe they've tried a few times and it's just not sticking. They're just not really getting the traction that they need. Maybe they're flirting with a month of sobriety here and there, but they just haven't gotten it to really develop into a long-term sober lifestyle, right?
Right.
Because and that's important to note because some people say they reach out to me, and I'm like, look, brother, you gotta call freaking 911. You've got to call, you've got to get admitted somewhere. That's what we're talking about with you. Some people with their story, where they may be at. And then there's some people who are like, man, I make it to 3 months and I hit a wall and then boom, it all falls apart. Now that's the perfect person to go to myrockbottomrecovery.com and
Okay.
it's kind of extend that runway of sobriety. And so what it is, it's a handful of tools that I mix both physical fitness and some other connectivity exercises, meaning to reach out to loved ones and to start to redevelop or reestablish those relationships. And so it's a mixture of those things. I do lean a lot on, and I'll die on that hill that physical fitness is the low hanging fruit for dopamine and healing because there's so many elements that physical fitness um, adhere to or help with, that a person who's trying to become sober, like it will really help out to just get a little bit of a sweat on, and so I go over that. And when I say, now I want to also make a note that when I say physical fitness, I'm talking about somebody who is starting from scratch, right? Because I was once I had gotten sober and I had, probably about 6 months of sobriety under my belt. I'm like, I was horribly overweight. I was like 270 pounds. And I was thinking, well, I got to do something about this too. Right. And so I went outside and I did some jumping jacks. And I said, I made a goal for the day. I said, I'm going to do 3 minutes of jumping jacks. Now I went outside and I did about 15 seconds and I thought I was going to die. But the goal wasn't 3 minutes at once. The goal was 3 minutes in a day. And so this is my point, is that I set that goal because it was a goal I could achieve. And I thought, okay, in 24 hours, I can get 3 minutes of jumping jacks done. And so that's where I set the goal. And that's a very important point to make. And so that's what I work with at myrockbottomrecovery.com is what is something that we can accomplish,
Right.
something that we can do and say, no matter what, by the end of this day, I'm going to make this happen. And so that's really important. But I did start from scratch though when it came to the physical fitness part, and I understand a lot of people might be there, especially if they've spent a good deal of their time and focus just destroying their body with substances, and that's usually not good for the physical fitness element of our lives, right? So, yeah.
Sure. Well, no, I appreciate that. I mean, so you're building on small wins, is what it sounds like. Accomplishment, get a win, get another win, get another win. That makes total sense. So I love that idea for the program. I know that a lot of us come out of that, we're might be addicted to something, and we're not used to having any kind of win at all, and we're almost resigning ourselves to the idea that we're not going to win. I mean, am I getting that right?
Yes. I mean, you nailed it. That the hopelessness, because that's what hopelessness is that you just have given up on believing you're capable of winning.
Right.
And so, to your point about small wins, that's how we nurture and we cultivate winning, right? You start with something small. And Jordan Peterson, who's good, he's a hero of mine, is that he says the goal that you can attain at first isn't going to be glorious. It's not going to be something that you post. It's not going to be something you tell everybody.
Right.
Hey, check it out. It took me 24 hours to do 3 minutes of jumping jacks. And, oh, by the way, I feel like I got hit by a truck, right? Like it's not something you brag about. Or I did 3 push-ups. It's like, that's not somebody like, oh, damn, good for you. Like that's not going to happen at first. It's just not going to. So that can be a barrier for people to really make it, is because they either expect that of themselves or they don't feel that validation on the outside. So then it never gets off of the ground. And so it's important for people to know that.
Yeah. No, I agree with you completely. I love the way you're putting things together so far here. I do want to deviate for just a minute and ask you, you've brought up faith several times during the podcast today. Um, how big of a role was that in your life in terms of getting through your recovery?
I would say that it grew. Now, that's a very vague statement, but I do have a good phrase to back that up. I believe that God, He will not show up and knock the bottle out of your hand. He won't. You have to put that thing down and you've got to get some kind of success. But if you manage to get that first step, if you manage to get just that win for yourself, he will launch you into another exponential rate of growth that you cannot imagine at this point in time. And so how meager it was from the start was that I would say, I'm not going to drink for 15 minutes. 15 minutes. And I would be at work, right? I didn't have that great, I was like a $10 an hour job in retail, and I had a bottle of vodka in my bag, and I'd say, okay, it's 10. I've got to go do all these tasks, and I'm not going to drink until 10:15. And I'd be back in the break room in like 10:11, failing. And so it wasn't until I really managed to put it down. But when I did do that, he just, picked me up and carried me, you know, I guess it's not really a finish line, but we made a lot more progress very quickly once I had succeeded in that one initial step. And so that is what I say about faith, is that if you can manage that first step, he will do a lot of the labor after that point. But you got to get that one done.
Yeah. Wow. That's strong. Um, is faith something that you were brought up with? Was it strong before this problem sort of manifested itself as a problem, or was this something you found, down the road as you went?
Yeah. And it was most certainly something that I I don't want to I was aware, but at a very obscure level. My grandmother, big believer, right? However, she wasn't very articulate. In fact, when I think back to my grandparents, like they didn't really talk much. Like they just didn't talk that much. I don't know if it was a generational thing, but they just it wasn't her, it wasn't their thing, and it wasn't her thing to articulate scripture or reference scripture, or she just didn't talk that much. I knew she believed in Jesus and things like that, but it wasn't something that it was instilled in me just because we didn't talk about it that much. And so I wasn't familiar by a long shot. And then I had to get familiar in order to embrace that relationship. And so I got into scripture and I just, again, I started piecing together all of these tools, all of these habits that were replacing my old bad habits. I was replacing them with good and productive and useful habits, and one of them being scripture daily. And so it did add to my relationship with God. Now, a lot of I don't, I haven't, just because faith is very personal. I believe that it's so personal that I have kind of left it out of my book and my website, just because it's so unique, it's so special, that I at the time, as I was developing these things for people, I didn't have, and I still don't feel like I have a relationship with God that is defined enough to actually tell other people how to do it. So like
Sure.
that's all, right? That's all. That's the only reason why I don't have it in those things that I have developed, just because I just don't think that I have a good enough grasp to communicate it. Meaning my own relationship. So, but it is a huge part, and I do think that in one way or another, people will have to develop something with their higher power.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, and I'm sorry if I overstepped. I just was kind of
Oh,
picking that up, and I really do appreciate your openness on that. It takes a lot to kind of say I don't really know yet, but I'm working on it. So I, again, really do appreciate you answering that. The your book, Man Up, Sober Up. Now, obviously, this is your story. From what I've gathered and the research I've done here, it sounds like I mean you get down and dirty with like, hey, this is how rough it really got. Um,
yeah.
the is it just your story? Is it actionable steps to get out of it? What is the book, and what does it consist of? What do people expect when they buy it?
It's memoirs, right? So um, each story is followed by actionable steps and wisdom. Now, this is predominantly wisdom that I had uh, used and gathered from others that I feel are much smarter than myself. And so, it is each element of the book is a story of mine, rock bottom moments, and then what had developed from those rock bottom moments, and the myriad of different perspectives, tools, wisdom, quotes, whatever it may be. It's just this bag of ideas that I found very helpful and useful for me to gain traction in recovery.
Okay, excellent. All right. Um, Everybody's going to ask you, well, what made you write the book? I think that's pretty clear. What made you write the book? I'm curious as to, again, who it is you're writing the book for, who it is you're writing the book to as you're writing it. Is it the same person who's perfect for the myrockbottomrecovery.com? Is it a different type of person? What are you hoping to accomplish with writing the book the way you have?
There's a funny development of the book that I could not have foreseen, is the positive feedback from women. And even on my Facebook page, at My Rock Bottom Recovery, I think 60% of my audience, and so I've got almost 250,000 followers. I got 241,000 followers. So like out of that group of people, I think it's like 64% of them they're women. And so I just didn't think that, and the book isn't finely tuned toward men. And I use the phrase "man up" is kind of like a social kind of like step up, like man up, come on, let's do this. And it's like the book itself is for somebody who may not think it's possible for themselves, right? So I want to, by the stories that I share, kind of create or destroy that loneliness factor, right? Because that's where really pigeonhole yourself into a life tethered to substances when you think that I'm the only. And that phrase, I'm the only, yeah, but you don't know what I've been through. That when people buy into that narrative, they are further shackling themselves to the substances that they lean on. And that you don't get it. You don't know what I dealt with. And so that's why I do what I do. Now that story, that narrative, that can keep somebody locked into that lifestyle forever. And so when you can get away from that and open up your head and say, I'm not the only. And I'm not the there are other people and they have gone through other things. And if they did it, then maybe I can do it. And then the next question would be, well, how did they do it? And so I tried to add that part of it too. And so that's probably who I'm aiming at the most.
Excellent. Makes a lot of sense. Um, the, the podcast then. How does the podcast work with the book, with the website? Because it seems like you're establishing all these different legs of this program that you're putting out there. I mean, you're really building this foundation. What role does the podcast play?
The pod the podcast had developed because I am terrified of being on camera. I was like, how do I get my message out? And I had my wife like recording me, and I mean, I'm standing in my own living room, stuttering, feeling weird, deleting video after video after video,
Hmm.
just like, oh man, like this feels so funky. I'm like, oh gosh, I don't know if I can do it. And then I went on a podcast as a guest, and I said, I can have a conversation. I can do this. I feel comfortable when I see a person like Rory and they're smiling back at me. I'm like, oh, now I feel great. I'm like, okay. And so then I was like, yeah, I really enjoy podcasts. And so the Next Fix podcast was developed as a space for people to share what their next addiction is, because I do speak about this regularly. Is that an addict is an addict, right? And moderation is out of the window, right? It's off the table. And so why not get addicted to things that are useful? And then the addiction becomes a superpower because when you have the tenacity of an addict, they will get their drugs. They will do it. They will. Now, if you could take that same tenacity and add it to something valuable, like you will feed these people that are hungry, or you will develop this technology, and you go at it with that tenacity, you cannot be stopped. And so that's what the next fix is really is taking that addictive character trait and then pointing it in the right direction. And there's a whole lot of people that are doing it. And so that's what it is. I really enjoyed having people come on and tell their comeback story and what they're doing after they've gotten some traction in recovery.
Nice. Nice. All right. Well, the only leg of this entire operation that seems to be missing is the speaking platform. So are you out there doing speaking on this and talking to groups about what you've overcome?
I have, but I haven't gotten too focused on my audience. Like I'll show up and kind of share my story because I have a good time doing it. But I haven't gotten dialed into building, or setting up the room myself. If I get invited, I do, but it's not something that I've set my sights on, that's for sure. And so that development may be next. I feel good about it.
Nice, nice. So as you build this, this movement and this recovery for to help other people, what's the main piece? Is it writing another book? Is it pushing this book out? Is it building a podcast? Where's your focus?
Well, yeah, Roy, before we hit record today, my focus these days is on being a father. I
Right on.
18-year-old kid. So Rory knows he snuck in here, my son, and he's never done that. So he's just now able to reach the door handle. So I was quite surprised. What? Who's opening up the door? And I'm looking straight ahead, nobody there. And I look down. Oh, there he is. And so that's where my focus is at these days. And so I'm kind of not putting anything on the back burner, but as you know, like we prioritize certain things. And so I'm just enjoying being a father at the moment and really embracing that because that's been my greatest adventure.
Right.
So So
I love that. And that was a perfect segue because that's where I was going next is, you got a remarkable little guy there. And he did. He came out and he made his first public appearance on the Power Man podcast. So I mean, it's he's destined now. So he just dove into the masculinity space at 18 months old. So I think that's fantastic. Um, Becoming a father, man. How does that impact you with everything you've been through? Does it put more pressure on you because you have to worry now, about like, hey, I've got this guy and people dependent on me, or is it a piece of strength? Where does your focus go with that, with what you've been through?
yeah, it is interesting, and this is something that I've spoke about many times now. Is like, am I worried about him going down the same path? What am I going to do? What is my plan because as I had mentioned in the beginning of this conversation, my parents very much, and my grandparents, well, not my grandmother, but my grandpa, but here's something clearly in my bloodline. And so a very magnificent achievement would be to break that generational the generational chains, as they say, and stop that behavior from continuing on in my family. And so, but the only way I can do that is by living by example. I believe wholeheartedly. I'm not going to hide anything. I mean, heck, you could pick up the book, right, and read it if you want. So that wouldn't make much sense. So I'm going to be as transparent and arm him with knowledge. That's the plan. And so, but your question was like, how has this adventure been, and like, has it added another level of uh, pressure? And so it does change everything. I believe now wholeheartedly. Like, there are people that fall into two buckets. Uh, People that are parents and people that are not parents.
Hmm.
And I say that I use the word parent because you know somebody could have a child. And I used to say you either have a child or you don't. But some people have children and they're not a parent. And so you have parents and you have people that aren't parents. And so, yeah, the priorities have changed 100%. They're completely different. However, I could not commit myself to a more noble cause. And so I do believe that this has given me now, because when I was younger, I was very transparent about this. I was living fast. I was like, I'm gonna just try to leave a decent looking corpse and call it a day. And now all of that has changed. I'm like, now I'm thinking 10, 20 years, out ahead of time, where as an addict, time shrinks.
Hmm.
I only thought of 4 hours ahead of time because that's about how long it takes before your alcohol or your drugs wear off. About 4 hours. You wake up in the middle of the night. Why? Because you're starting to become sober a little bit,
Yeah.
right? And so things are starting to wear off, and you're like, oh, wait a second. I gotta re-up. I gotta figure out. That's how you live your life, 4 hours at a time. And if you do that long enough, you start to lack the vision. And so when you add a child, it starts to rebuild that vision down the road. What does it look like 5 years? Well, now I don't have a choice to not think about that. And so, that is a very big transformation, is to rekindle that relationship with the future. Because a true person who's in the trenches, they don't care about what happens in the future. And
Right.
so that is something that has changed for me, most certainly.
No, I love that you're talking about recognizing that, and that's a great way to phrase it too, living 4 hours at a time. I've heard some things that are similar, but I like that one a lot because, man, that's really specific, and I've seen that with my own eyes. So, I mean, that's very accurate, brother. Let me ask you this in terms of this transformation and what you're having to deal with your son. Um, is it like an anxiety filled thing? Is it a fear? Is it excitement? Is it, hope towards the future? Where do you fall emotionally in that, whirlwind that you're dealing with of now being a father and having this brand new outlook that you have to deal with?
There is an element to it that that is I kind of feel like I'm behind the eight ball. So when I speak to a person who hasn't, maybe dealt with or had the type of journey that I have, it's say they've been working on their career for 25 years. And so they're well established and their vocation is dialed in and they have become this skilled professional and those types of things. In those conversations I do have this a bit of envy because there was the majority of my life I was spending it being a heathen. So occasionally I look at somebody who has those pieces to the puzzle. They have the college plan developed, and they've been building the home and the legacy there. I I do feel like I'm a little bit behind the eight ball. So to your point, like what do I feel? A little bit of anxiety. You had mentioned anxiety. There is a little bit of me that I'm playing catch up. And I move a little bit faster and I always lean towards the positive. So there's a result of that anxiety or that feeling of like, oh wow, I missed out on some time here. And so I move about 10 times faster than almost anybody else. And so given the opportunity, I just launch, I relentlessly launch. And so there's a feeling of always kind of being behind, but it also drives me forward. And so, that's even with the book. Like I wrote that book in 3 months. I mean, published it, started writing it, published it 3 months later, just because of this tenacity, really. And so and I'm well aware that there is no testimony without a test. And so I
Right.
have that part of it. However, time, when it comes
Right.
to time, I feel that I'm behind. It's not necessarily, it's not a dooming, uh, part of my life, but it is a reality. And so I do find myself like a little bit envious of somebody who's just been, steadily building this lifestyle nonstop over years and years, and they don't have some period of just, nothingness. But I can also turn that to my advantage. And so, yeah, there's a little bit of anxiety, I guess.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you answering the question. That's those are never easy. The how do you feel questions, but um, you're entering this brand new thing of fatherhood, and I've done it three times, and I'm an empty nester now. So, it's something that I've made a lot of mistakes in, and but I've experienced, wholeheartedly. There's a ton of power in that position. And so, you can use that for kind of for good or for evil. It's like it can be the thing that makes you wake up in the morning. It can be the thing that, scares you to death. So sounds like you're approaching it in a very healthy way, So
Trying.
congratulations on that. That's fantastic. There was somebody else in the room. I'm just curious that, helped get your son off the camera. Is that wife, girlfriend support
Yeah.
system?
It's my wife, Kathleen.
Okay.
And so she's from the Philippines, and uh, to go back to the faith part, we had met, and we couldn't be more different. That's for certain. And so we had met, and she had become a widow. She had moved to the United States, and for the person that she had married and moved to the United States for, he had passed away. And so here she is in a country, and all she really wanted was a child. And so then here I come, and I knew that family and children was something that I didn't think I was capable of because of my past. And so I met her, and then it was like the only real cornerstone that we had was the faith part. She's a Catholic, and I'm a, newer self-developed Christian. And so we didn't know a whole lot about each other. And the more that we found out about each other, the more that we knew we were different. And so, but we still had our faith. And so I feel like that, if anything, can be a very solid cornerstone to a foundation in building a relationship. And so, even to this day, we have countless differences. But one thing that we do share is that there's a lot of boxes that could be checked off by somebody who does have a strong faith. And so because of that, I feel like we're able to move forward pretty good. And
That's
so
nice. That's nice. It's important to have that kind of support system. with everything you guys are building. So, congratulations on that. And I mean, 6 years sober is just fantastic. And you've got every reason in the world to keep that going, brother. So I applaud you and your efforts, and not only that, but to go through that and to be devoting all of this time and energy to helping other people do it says a hell of a lot. Um, what makes you want to do that? What makes you want to say, you know what? Yeah, I've been through this, but I really want to help all these other people. I want to help these men, through writing my book, through doing my podcast, putting out this, my website, my rock bottom recovery. What makes you want to say, hey, I really want to help other men not go through this or get out of this or fix themselves like I've had to do?
Well, a good portion of my life was focused on what I thought was the point, happiness. I thought happiness was the point. So I just chased it, right? Um, and if somebody does cocaine, right, it biologically gives you this burst of dopamine or happiness or whatever, however you want to look at it. That's what typically happens. But the reason why I use that as an example is because it's so quickly gone. And that's how happiness truly is that it's fleeting. And so when you chase happiness, and in whatever form it may come in, whether it be in a substance or an experience, sex, or extreme sports, or whatever that is, when you chase that, you find yourself empty, right? That is what I had learned, but spent so much of my life pursuing happiness because that's what I thought it was about. And so then the question is why develop the book and why develop the website? And you use the word yourself, responsibility, because I've learned that it's not about happiness. It's just it's not something you truly want to pursue. It will happen if you're fortunate. However, responsibility is something that we have. And by paying attention to that, you can have a much more fulfilled life. And so, knowing that, I feel since I got a little bit of success in recovery, it's my responsibility. It's my responsibility and my due diligence to reach down or back, however you want to look at it, to people that might be just behind me, right? That's the idea. It's you've got three people on a ladder. Somebody at the top of the ladder, somebody in the middle of the ladder, and somebody at the bottom of the ladder. Which person do you want to be? You want to be the person that's still climbing. And so we're always climbing, ideally. And so when you are climbing, there will be people that can pull you up. There will be people that you will pull up if you're doing it right. And so that's what it is that I know that the responsibility and the pursuit of reaching back to people that I can help, that's what it's all about. That's how it's got to be.
Nice. Nice. I have a huge appreciation for what you're doing. I really do. Absolutely love it. Let me ask you this as we kind of wrap things up here. And Ryan, thank you so much for bringing everything to the table today and sharing the way you have. Before we, hit our last question and wrap up, tell everybody how they can reach you. I want to make sure we get that out. I don't want to skip that. So how do they reach you? I know we have the myrockbottomrecovery.com. Um, talk about that and any other way that they can contact you and get in touch.
Yeah, the website there, myrockbottomrecovery.com. Now that's the launch pad and that's the 21-day challenge. So if you're somebody that's, maybe somebody that's in recovery, or maybe or maybe yourself, right? Maybe you've plateaued, or maybe you keep hitting a wall and kind of falling back as far as your substance use is concerned, go to that website. However, if you want to know about the book, the podcast, or anything else, ryanpenley.org, right? So ryanpenley.org is where I've got links to all the stuff. And so, yeah, that would be, or,
Perfect.
on Facebook, go to My Rock Bottom Recovery, and you'll see a pretty good sized community there. And I put some good stuff about, recovery and substance abuse. And so I invite everybody to go take a look.
Nice. And I want to hit on the free 21-day challenge because this is a free thing that you're offering to folks to help get them started on the path. This is literally you putting your hand backwards to help somebody up the ladder that's trying to
Right.
climb. Tell us about that, real quick, what that's about, what it does, and what they can expect when they look that up.
Yeah, and so when you go there and then you opt in, you'll have different versions, right? You can do your email will get hit with an outline that you can kind of do on your own. I will also email you with a video of myself short videos, 3 to 5 minutes. And if you want the video, you don't have to do the video. You can just read through and kind of just walk through the steps. There's visuals that are also included there too. But again, going back to our point, they're small wins, right? And so it's important to meet people where they're at, right? So
Yeah.
wherever that may be, it may not be glorious at the moment. And I address that, right? So we start building some momentum. And so by the end of the 21 days, I want to at least establish an aim that's up, right? It doesn't have to be straight up, right? It could just be slightly more up than where you were before, and then also some momentum. Yep. And so that is one magnificent force of nature is the exponential growth. Once you start getting the small wins, what happens next is crazy. It'll blow your mind at what can happen next. And so I really want people to experience that. And so the myrockbottomrecovery.com is a launch pad for that. And so, that's the intention.
Nice. Nice. All right. I know there are thousands of men out there who are right on that edge of saying, do I need help? Do I not need help? I'm not really sure. And this sounds like a really great place for them to kind of start and start asking those questions. Am I right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on. Right on. All right, Ryan. As we wrap up, is there anything I didn't ask you? Is there anything that we talked about you want to double down on? A parting thought for our audience, maybe a nugget you want to leave behind. I'm going to give you the last minute or two to sort of wrap up. Make sure that you get your final message out to everybody on this podcast, to all the thousands of fathers and husbands that are listening right now. Go for it. The floor is yours.
So perpetual incremental progress is unstoppable. And so perpetual meaning like if you can link the days together, right? Incremental, small progress, any type of a win, right? So there's another way from this is like just become 1% better every day, which is very common, but perpetual incremental progress is unstoppable. And so if you can cultivate those very small wins daily, hourly, whatever it is, whatever time frame that you need to shrink yourself to and get that win and then increase those wins over time, however small they may be. I mean, you will see just something that is a force of nature. And I encourage anybody just start that you can be too humble because you can't, right? Start with where you're at, make some moves, and that really will reveal to you what you're capable of. And so that's something that I think everybody really should hold dear to themselves.
Nice, nice. The small incremental wins are huge. Absolutely. All right. Author of Man Up, Sober Up, founder of myrockbottomrecovery.com, and host of the Next Fix podcast, and father and husband, and 6 years sober. Congrats again. Ryan Penley, appreciate you so much, brother, for coming on and sharing your story and of overcoming and just of raw honesty, man. Thank you for being here today.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks, Roy.
Yeah, absolutely. Folks, that's been another very powerful episode of the Power of Man podcast. And the reason that we bring you such powerful men with such powerful stories is because we are united in hoping that you find your power so that you can be a better protector, better provider, better leader tomorrow than you are today, so that you can be a better husband, a better father, a better man tomorrow than you are today. And the reason we want that for you is because you matter. It's because you have value. And it's because you're worth it. And at some point, you just have to believe it. Until next time.